come back home now, and this week former President Jacob Zuma initiated a private prosecution against the lead prosecutor in his corruption case, Advocate Billy Downer, for, quote, leaking, unquote, a medical note from his doctor to specialist reporter Karyn Maughn, who is also being charged. The note in question had been filed by Zuma's lawyers to the court as part of an application to postpone his case due to ill health at the time. Maughn says the material had been published after it was tabled in court and that neither party had applied for it to be sealed, adding it was a medical certificate and not his private medical records. But it has reanimated a debate on journalists' rights and duties in reporting and has ignited mixed public opinion, with especially harsh criticisms coming from those who support the former president. Anton Harber is Caxton Professor of Journalism at Wits University and writes that this is an important case which is mostly about the defense of an open justice system and the protection of journalists. I'd like to welcome Anton to our program now. Good evening and welcome. You write that this case will be important and is likely to go all the way to the Constitutional Court, as it will test a very important principle, a journalist's right to publish court material in the public interest. Share that perspective with our viewers, Anton.
I lost you there as you crossed me.
Anton, I'm hoping that you can hear me now, and did you not get the bulk of my question? I will maybe just rephrase the question, and I hope that you can hear me. This is an important case, you write. It's likely to go all the way to the Constitutional Court. Share with our viewers why.
It's an important case because, first of all, it's unprecedented. I don't know of any person who themselves is being prosecuted who opens a private prosecution against a prosecutor and a journalist. It's important because I view it as an attack on Karyn Maughn, the reporter, who's the one person who's covered this case from the beginning and is still going. And it's an attack on how journalists operate in court. Because Karyn Maughn, what she did was completely routine. She talked to the parties, she got documentation, she waited until it was publishable after it had been tabled in court, and then she published. So to attack that is an attack on the openness of the court, the capacity of journalists to report on what's happening in the court. And I think it's important that we defend not just the journalist who's come under attack, but the principle that we must be allowed to do our work, and we must ensure that courts remain open.
Let's go back to the point that you raised now, Anton, around journalism and journalistic hygiene. When a matter is placed into the court record, it becomes the purview of the public. Just clarify that point for those who may not understand it.
That's correct. Court documents, unless there's a special ruling or a request from either party, which then gets a ruling to seal it and not make it public, it automatically becomes public. What the law says is that the distribution of material from the investigation is illegal. It only becomes legal to distribute it once it is formally tabled in court. So I can only talk about Karyn Maughn's case because my concern is journalism. I think she received the documents, but she did not distribute them until it was legal to do so. So it seems to me that's an important principle. And in fact, the case against her, it's one reason I think the case against her is one of harassment and intimidation. It's because it's such a weak case. Why go to these lengths to go after a prominent and respected journalist?
Well, that was going to be my second question. It seems quite straightforward, given the facts. To tease out, what you've just hinted at now, what do you believe are the underlying reasons that the former president is choosing to go this route?
Look, there's a pattern. This is part of a long-standing pattern of the way the president and his legal team handle his case and other cases that he faces. It is what's called the Stalingrad strategy. It's to delay, to appeal everything, to object to everything, to then take that to court, to appeal it to the highest court, everything they can do to harass the prosecution, to slow down the process and to delay. And this case has gone on since 2005. mostly because of that reason. There's been other reasons, but mostly because of that strategy. So it seems to me it's very much part of that strategy, which is intimidate, harass, slow down, do everything to avoid proper, quick, open justice.
The South African National Editors Forum expressing disgust, Anton, at the serving of the summons and labels it, quote, a clear case of intimidation solely intended to silence Maughn, unquote, that the information was a public record and not confidential. Share some examples for how the intimidation of journalists can shut down freedom of expression and reporting information that is in the public interest.
Look, it's been said a number of times recently that journalists are facing harassment on a number of levels, and it's actually a global phenomenon tied to social media. A good deal of it is tied to social media, but it's been acute here, particularly aimed at women journalists. So when somebody blows the dog whistle, the dogs go after the journalist. And we saw it in this case. She became immediately, again, the target of social media attacks that strayed into the misogynistic and the racist, ugly, unpleasant, threatening harassment. And that is what happens. We heard evidence recently from a psychologist that deals with journalists and post-traumatic stress, because they are first responders, they are at the front line of many a difficult situation, that they suffer from a higher percentage, higher degree of post-traumatic stress than doctors, and that's quite remarkable.
Anton, to conclude, the fight is not just to protect her, but to defend an open justice system in which reporters play a key role. Why do you believe that this is a fight that all right-thinking South Africans should get behind?
Absolutely. You know, the difference between our courts in a democracy and courts in places that are less democratic, one of the key differences is that the courts are open so that we can keep a watch on the process of justice and develop confidence that the system is operating properly and justice is being served. And when it isn't, that journalists acting on behalf of the public can point that out, demonstrate it, and force it to be addressed. It's absolutely critical to the justice system and to the democratic system. So when you attack the capacity of journalists to do that, what you're doing is attacking the justice system.
Anton Harber, thanks for sharing your insights with us. Anton is also director for the Campaign for Free Expression.